Yeah, hi there, YouTube. Look at that quality. Yeah, hell yeah. Upscaling at this point, with, a package that I got from, I linked to it. I was learning about encoding, earlier, but, upscaling anime in MPV with Anime Genai version 3, which yeah, let's put this in the underboard of this video. Anyways, I came on here not to talk about that. I actually came on here to talk about the a dissent from a common point of view that I've seen expressed here on YouTube, which is essentially there used to be a golden age of mobile games and everything, and that there ever was a golden age, because I see video titles like "Why Mobile Games Suck Now," and the only thing that I can think is mobile games never didn't suck. Mobile games have always sucked. They've never been any good. They never were. Even back during the supposed golden age of these, these crappy games. And I don't know. I don't know how that market ended up being of higher. How it ended up being higher on the list of the amount of people playing. I mean, because these games suck. They're crappy Skinner boxes that are designed to extract as much money from you as possible. It's always pay for win loot box shit, and basically these guys are parasites, the people that program it, and they've managed to exploit a huge number of people that are dumb enough to fall for it. But as for me, like I saw all of it. I saw what was happening with Candy Crush and saw it all as exploitative right from the start, and just decided no, that's not happening, and stayed away from it, made healthier choices and decisions for myself and everything, because I saw right through it. I saw this as an exploitative business model that is not worth the price that people would pay for it, even as my own family was devoting money to that goddamn abomination that was known as Farmville. I hate the loot boxes. I hate these exploitative economies inside the mobile gaming, a space. I don't like it at all. I don't approve of it or what it's doing to, a whole generation of people and, young men in particular. But, I remember, passing through the mall and, at, the Apple Store and seeing, the models of Angry Birds and everything, and I tried it out. I played it for a little bit, and then, just about as soon as I got out of the store, I never touched Angry Birds ever again, because it just wasn't, well, number one, it wasn't of interest to me. It's not the style of game that I normally play, and, I saw it, and I worried to a huge extent, especially when I saw Square Enix, making mobile games themselves, and, making, in games for iOS, and Android, it left me wondering, nothing in this space has been promising at all. Nothing has impressed me. Nothing has sold me on, mobile games at all. And, when I talk about mobile games, I think we really need to narrow down the context of what, we're really talking about, because somebody could stretch the definition to, include handheld consoles, like Nintendo has been selling and trying to pioneer, a handheld market in the United States and, abroad for a very long time. They've been trying to distribute that globally, but I'm not talking about handheld consoles and specifically excluding them. I'm talking about, what's been coming out, for iOS and Android operating systems on our smartphones. And it's late 2025 as I'm recording this. The year's almost over. We're heading into New Year's in 2026, and I've yet to see really anything that sold me on the idea of playing games on a smartphone, which is why I carry, around with me as my phone. Like, I've got a Blue Bubble server and a 2024, Mac Mini that's running, that Blue Bubble server so that I don't lose access to iMessage. But other than that, I've got a cheap $200, Samsung Galaxy A16, I think. It just isn't much, and because I've got a laptop that's over $2,000 with 64 gigabytes of RAM and everything else. It's a high end system, at least high mid range laptop. So it's a 5070, not a Ti, but just a 5070, and a 64 gigabytes of RAM, and an 8 core processor from AMD. It's a nice system. It's not like literally the absolute top of the tier $4,000 laptop, but we're talking like $2,300, $2,400. So it's on the higher end of the mid range and everything, and it's a nice laptop. And I see all these videos going up, and they're like, "Oh, there's this golden age of mobile gaming," and I wasn't impressed during the supposed golden age either. From my perspective, mobile games have always been a shithole. They've never been any good, and they never will be. I have no reason to have any hope that any of this will ever change. I'm not excited at all about any of it, and I don't think it's going to change either. And so, I'm happy on a cheap phone, because what do I need all that power on a small device that I carry around in my pocket with me for anyways, if it's not going to be used for gaming? It's not like it's the. I mean, what am I going to render with it? It's leading to these sorts of inconvenient questions. And if I were to, hypothetically carry this video around with me, since I've got a talent for that and upscaling and everything, and try to make it portable, I wouldn't want to bring it over on a smartphone. I would want to bring it over to a full-scale tablet at the very least, as far as downscaling, because I don't like small screens. Bigger is better, so to speak. But no, I've yet to see anything that really gives me any degree of excitement about from this whole world of smartphone games. And yeah, I just prominent YouTubers are like, mobile games suck, and I'm now, and they're asking the question why they suck now, and I'm like, why have they always been shit? They're like, this question is misframed. I mean, why have there was no golden age. They've always been garbage. And if you were excited at all by shit like Angry Birds, well, good for you, but you were an out-of-touch youngster back then. I was older. I'd had plenty of disappointment in my life by the time that shit happened, and so were so many of the other ones, and we were never excited by anything that was coming out that was exclusively supported on Android or iOS. Ever. Mobile gaming has been basically defined by the disappointment that it has caused me, even back during the supposed golden age, when Angry Birds was on fire and everything else. I didn't see it going anywhere, and I still don't see it going anywhere. If there's one thing that I have proved that my skepticism has been most strongly validated by, it has been, my complete lack of faith that Apple or even Android people will ever figure it out and release anything that could even be classified as the killer app in the form of a video game for their devices. And, they have proven that, unfortunately, you don't need a killer app, because they don't have one, and they've managed to sell like hotcakes. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any compelling reason to ultimately upgrade my phone beyond, a cheap, Samsung phone and then just run a Blue Bubble server in the other room to, basically claw my way back into iMessage so I don't get, discriminated against.